Good evening and welcome to a very special interview show of the Prode. Tonight we are joined by Supreme Court Advocate Bilal Anwar, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for agreeing to this interview and welcome to the Prode.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dear, for having me. Thank you. It's been very kind of you to been, having me on board. And it would be an interesting, hopefully, kind of a chit chat with you.
Yeah, okay. So I would like to start by asking that in recent times we have seen a lot of debates on the encounter killing of a UP based gangster. Like
Right.
what is your on which side are you standing and what is your take on this matter?
See, the the golden principle is everyone's life is precious.
Yeah.
And that particular idea and the principle has been recognized by our sacred constitution under Article 21.
Yeah.
Which says everyone has a right to life and personal liberty. That's very much enshrined there, and it's a part of the basic structure also. So now coming to these encounter killings, there have been several guidelines by the Supreme Court in the judgment of PUCL versus State of Maharashtra. Uh, as former CGI Justice R.M. Lodha was. So there was a 16 pointers of guideline he issued back then. It triggers off with an intelligence input. If any police official is having any kind of information, he will reduce it to writing. An intimation to a higher official would be given, and there should be if I may read it out.
Yeah.
FIR immediately to be written and sent to that Ilaka magistrate in which particular incident or the information has been gathered. And in case if there has been an encounter, there should be an independent investigation by CID or police by another police station under supervision of a senior police official. And as per the CRPC 176, there should be a magisterial inquiry for that, and that
Okay.
to be sent to a judicial magistrate in that particular jurisdiction where the incident or that encounter has taken place. That report to be sent to a judicial magistrate, and importantly, if there are kind of apprehension that there won't be any, kind of apprehension regarding a biased investigation or not having a fair investigation, then aid of or so to say NHRC can be involved. But intimation to NHRC is must from the very beginning. And mind you, this is the law declared under Article 141. It's a binding precedent, though it is already a guideline issued by the Supreme Court, and
Yeah.
additional safeguard or an stipulation has been enforced by the court itself by recognizing the value of these guidelines as a law. Any departure from that would attract automatically consequences for that. It may be in the form of contempt or it may be in form of any other action by the court or the competent authority.
Okay.
So
So
this is
how
the general guidelines regarding the encounter killing.
Okay, so how can an encounter killing affect the lives of common people? Like, why is the encounter culture like a threat to the democracy?
See, we have along with the Article 21, we have Article 14, this equality of law, equal protection of law, access to justice. If A commits a crime or a B commits a crime, the recourse to law remains common or same to both of them. All right. So unless that person faces a trial and the judicial scrutiny by a competent court, you cannot convince someone of that guilt without confronting him to the witnesses, to the evidences on record, unless until that process has been taken into consideration or has been put in place, it chances of fallibility are large. See, the encounter took place in Hyderabad.
Yeah.
What if by chance there's certain uh, you, you know margin of error, so to say.
Yeah.
If the under trial prisoners are not being convicted by the court, the golden line of criminal jurisprudence is there is presumption of innocence. So unless the guilty been accused or held by the competent court, you cannot, hold someone accountable at the gunpoint.
Yeah.
It's absolutely travesty of justice, and the Article 21, it's completely aberration from that. All right. So, and whatever these people are, they do have a right to fair trial that has been guaranteed by the Constitution of India. So, if there is a margin of error and those persons have not been convicted by a competent court, tomorrow it can be presumed that the original perpetrators of this crime may walk free,
Yeah.
and those actually who are not even the part of this conspiracy been held to,
End up dying.
right. That's a problem with this whole culture of encounter thing. Now, another aspect of this is that this discretion is with the police. Now, the police is to enforce the policies of the government. We are not at the stage that we are enforcing the law directly by the police. And the need of the hour is that there should be reforms in the police. This kind of a usage of force by the police is completely unwarranted, and there are strict restrictions by the criminal procedure court to be followed even before the arrest is being carried out, let alone an encounter or a person being killed by the police.
Yeah.
So this entire idea of encounter is completely misconceived and does not fit in the democratic setup. This is the point.
Okay, so we have seen a lot of increase in the number of encounter killings these days. Like, how can the judiciary play a role in bringing the number down?
Significantly, they have already issued a plethora of guidelines in it. Supreme Court have time and time have issued guidelines on that aspect, and prior to that there are addition as per 2005 amendment, 2009 amendment in the basic criminal procedure code that needs to be followed. Any aberration from that is to be strictly met with the force of the law. But sadly,
Yeah.
sadly, in this time, we barely see any adherence to this basic strictures of law of the criminal procedure code. So this is the main thing. Now, just to give an example, there in the this judgment of the mob lynching. There are guideline, and the onus is upon, in a metropolitan city like Delhi, there's an onus is on the nodal officers are appointed to check for the any kind of misinformation or any kind of that thing. But sadly, till date, it's been 2014 to 15 when this whole thing came out. But sadly, it's been taken into the form of a law. So we see in the Palghar lynching as well, but there's no accountability being fixed on the erring officials.
Okay, so what are the challenges that are coming in the way?
Challenges is we clearly lack the framework. There have been recommendations by the law commissions, which needs to be considered by the political parties who are into the ruling regime. They should take into consideration, and partly there's also requirement on the part of the police department also to stick to the basic framework. And the secondary thing is, police officials, they're living and doing the duty under very deplorable conditions.
Yeah.
They are very much strenuous workload, and there's no regulation of work hours.
Yeah.
Proper sensitization should be done. You see, this is the law, this is the process that needs to be, all kind of educated, interdepartmental. If that can be done, perhaps that could result in a better, in this article preservation of the human life and liberty.
Okay, so coming to the another topic, like in Tamil Nadu, we have seen like a sad custodial death, and several reports claim that there has been a significant rise in the custodial death throughout the world, not just India, but throughout the world. So why are people involved in custodial killings not afraid of the law? Like, share your thoughts on this.
ultimately, this is also the sad facet of criminal, or sorry to say, another aspect of those encounter killings. It is a
Yeah.
custodial deaths. See, we already have the framework in place. All right, there are reports of Human Rights Watch. There has been a movement internationally that Black Lives Matter, where
Black
a
Lives. Yeah.
police station the department have been dismantled and a new police unit have been evolved. But we
Yeah.
don't how often we see in our country.
Yeah.
So there are guidelines in this also by the DK Basu. There are amendments in the criminal procedure code, like if somebody has to be arrested, he should be arrested by the police official carrying the nameplates, designation, arrest memo to be prepared, and there should be a signature by a witness. So all these kind of rights and the duties are casted upon the police official and to provide the medical assistance, and there is a right to lawyer to the accused.
Yeah.
But sadly, we have this kind of a framework in place or to be given way by the police authorities. Now, as per the reports, there are five every day. There are 5-7 custodial deaths. If we to analyze the data, there are 5-7 daily deaths, custodial deaths. So there are recommendations by the 130 Law Commission report, which says that if there is a custodial death, then there should be a presumption on those police officials who were present at the time of that death. So the burden of proof is also reversed in that case.
Yeah.
But sadly, that remains a recommendation only. It's not been enforced by any political party into the color of law. That hasn't been given effect to. So this requires a paradigm shift, so to say, in
Yeah.
the major police reforms, major
Okay.
arena of police reforms to be taken into consideration.
So again, now what are the challenges that are coming in front of judiciary in tackling these custodial deaths?
Certainly, there are challenges. Firstly, the most basic is we already have a huge backlog of cases. One thing to say, in that backdrop, we already have these strictures in place. All right, which are clearly not adhered to. There have been aberration by the police departments, and there are acts which say there should be a judicial inquiry or several commission inquiry to be taken into consideration if these kind of incident happen. But sadly, that takes time. That takes time, and most often authorities show reluctance when it is an interdepartmental matter. They barely. I mean, it's an uphill task to challenge authority. So that's a one thing, and it requires also very active intervention by the courts also. So this whole sort of framework is very frictional at each and every level. They have kind of a you know
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we have seen that many renowned media outlets have been justifying fake encounters, and those media outlets are followed by like lakhs of people throughout the country. So my question here is, don't you think that these type of shows are also a big reason behind an encounter, because the people who are engaged in these activities will know that the media will always defend them? But how do you see this?
see in April, if I'm not mistaken, in April, there is a ranking report which says we
Yeah,
are already in out of 180, we are at 142 place. And there's certainly of these reasons that we are just though they are considered as the fourth pillar of the democracy, and critically examining the role of the governments who have been endowed with this responsibility to act as a public servant to cater for people's need. But sadly, they rather than questioning and examining the attitude of the government, and believe me, the government is such a despot with a huge resources at their disposal. We should question someone with the responsibility
yeah,
to be questioned, right?
yeah,
Rather than building and justifying narratives, it won't help either the citizenry or anybody else. So these narratives are built, and they have the far outreach in the the household. In every household, they have their outreach.
And I don't know why people are like busy watching these channels.
Sad, very sad state of affairs, because every aspect, God has given you a conscious mind, critically examine things. Whatever you're coming across, it doesn't mean that you accept it as a gospel truth. You need to examine it. If that particular person that has been arrested by, that he needs to face the trial. The law remains, the recourse to law remains the same, whether he is a thief or a murderer or a normal citizen. Nobody to be presumed a guilty. Everyone is an innocent person unless proved otherwise after a fair trial. That's a procedure. So if the procedure is not followed and these media trials are being conducted and upholding someone who is a guilty, and these narratives are to be busted in a larger sense, like in the Nizamuddin issue. To recall that in particular incident, the charges that the whole media outlets going berserk about it. I mean, if somebody is carrying a virus, that is a ignorance of a fact. I do not know whether I am carrying a virus or not. Even a day or two before that, Parliament was in session, right?
Yeah.
So suppose there was an FIR. All right, let the person face the charges. Let the law takes recourse. Fine, if the charges are proved, let that person face the trial. Why this onus is cast upon on a particular group of people, blaming that they are liable for this spread? See, the government is responsible for the influx of all the people who are coming through airports, right? They are issuing the visas. They are monitoring the entry of foreigners. We have a particular law, that is the Foreigners Act, in place to check the entry of foreigners. So if there was an influx of people who are carrying the virus, or if there was an outbreak from the region from where they have been coming in, so that was the onus is upon the government. Onus was upon the government. So these media outlets, rather than questioning the government, just tore down the narrative of some particular AXYZ. They have been spreading the virus and that and this and that. So this whole narrative doesn't do any justice to the common citizenry. All right? And they just only further the ideas which are completely detrimental and in anathema to the spirit of the Constitution. All right? If someone who is not an accused, so is not held guilty by a competent court, all right, and you're just, in this swift justice, killing him, and at a later stage, and if the evidence are improper, if that person was supposed to, be acquitted by that court, then who will face this guilt conscious?
Yeah.
So these are the things that needs to be taken care of, and sadly, it's a very sorry state of affairs that media are completely going berserk about all these things. They are just completely furthering this whole notions that a state to be venerated. No, it's not. It's a service provider. It's to be questioned. They have all the resources at their disposal that needs to be checked from time to time. That's why we have a judicial review under Article 12 with the Constitution of India, and the authorities with the Supreme Court and the High Court to be petitioned and to check whether particular act is unconstitutional or not. So the individual is at the central in a constitutional democracy. Its rights are very of intrinsic importance. It's not the state that is carrying the rights. It's the individual whose will, whose conscience, whose discretion. These are the some of the factors of that, taken into account, rather than furthering these notions about that someone is guilty to be swiftly. This is not a rule of law.
Even the advocate of Maulana Saad came to our show, and he said that it was the Tablighi Jamaat people who were the most affected by the virus. Like they were the first ones to get affected by the virus.
Certainly. If you run a narration by these primetime debates, that person is that. So this thing sticks to the mind of the common citizenry, and it takes years to walk free out of that stigma. Even if the court tomorrow say that you are acquitted of your charge, and believe me, if somebody violates a lockdown, these are not a serious charge. These are mostly, all of those are bailable offenses. Now, recently there has been a change in, there are two categories of offenses, either bailable or non-bailable. In bailable, police is also empowered to, admit person to bail. Now, recently there has been a change. Now, the court in both the cases to admit people to bail. So now, in supposedly there are charges on him, let him face the trial, and in particular in this case there are charges, those are bailable by the police itself. So I do not understand what is the whole hue and cry about that.
The thing is that we have seen a lot of political events by the political parties, and like no one is saying, no media outlet is saying, okay, this political party is anti-national and this political party is from Pakistan and things like that.
Absolutely. See, there can be two versions to explain an event. Fine, there can be two perspectives. There can be a number of perspectives, so to say. But to say my way or highway, this is very problematic. This is very problematic because Article 19, right to freedom of expression, every single person is having a right to freedom of speech, expression, or to dissent, respectfully dissent. That happens. Discourse and debate happens in a constitutional democracy. But to say that my particular way is the only way, and that's the only gospel truth, then we are doing the injustice to the whole idea of our constitution and the sacred visions of our founding fathers. They have during the time of this framing of this constitution.
Okay, so I would conclude by asking that what are the laws that can prevent such type of actions from happening in the future, like media trials and all?
Unfortunately, we also have guidelines in that place. We also have guidelines by the Supreme Court in place to check the media trials. There are n number of cases where media went berserk. In Talwar case, in famous Talwar case, media went berserk. So even prior to that, there are several guidelines, but ultimately, this civic sense of the society that needs to be consideration. These media outlets, they need to act responsibly. That they have a wider, outreach, and they are involved in the narrative building. People are following their whatever the information on the facts they are providing to them, be it unchecked or checked. So they've been followed. They should act slightly responsibly. At least we've been advised as a law practitioner to do not comment upon the merits of the case when it is pending before the court. At least they should be careful about all of these aspects as a responsible citizens. That's a basic thing, because everything starts from an individual. If as a society, as a collection of individual, or as a society, we act little responsible, these things could be avoided for a greater good of this country.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for taking out the time. Thank you for speaking to us.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.